Hey friends, it's Bridget. Thank you for being here. This video is going to be all about refilling fountain pens, how to refill fountain pens, and this is a handful of pens that I cleaned earlier in the week. Hopefully this will be very helpful, particularly for beginners, because I'll be refilling 3 different types of refill mechanisms in these pens. We'll be starting out with some cartridge refills, then some piston refills, and lastly some cartridge converter refills, and there are a couple different ways you can do that I'll demonstrate. But the key for all re-inking, regardless of the mechanism, is to always start out with a thoroughly cleaned pen. So I cleaned all of these earlier in the week. Initially, I would be so ready to re-ink a pen that as soon as I would clean it, I'd give it 10-15 minutes tops, and then I'd ink it up. And you can do that, but there will likely still be moisture inside the pen, and when you do that, your ink color is going to be very diluted and faded for the initial writing. So I've learned that it pays off to be patient, and after you do clean your pens, it's best to wait at least overnight. These have been sitting out for a few days, so I know that they're not only clean but completely dry. So the ink should begin at its full performance as soon as I start writing with them, and not be diluted from any water left inside the pen. So I have 2 Kaweco Sports that we'll start out with for cartridge refill. This is usually a go-to for a beginner, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I use nothing but cartridge refills for quite some time when I first started using fountain pens, just because of my inexperience with other filling mechanisms. They seemed a little intimidating at first. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll see that any type of refill is actually quite easy. But if you do decide to start out with cartridges, they are quick and easy. The main key to a cartridge refill, if you'll notice why I'm putting some back in this black container, the cap indicates the color, and apparently I had mixed some blue cartridges in here at some point, but I'd like to put black ink in one of these. So I'm going to go with a black and a purple. But the key to success with cartridges is to make sure you're using the right size. There are different lengths of cartridges and different styles at the tip. So there's what they call an international, I believe. It's just basically like a standard cartridge that will fit most pens. And you just need to be cognizant when you're purchasing your pen that you read all of the information about it. Make sure that it will fit that type of cartridge. If at all possible, I always suggest just buying the proprietary cartridges for that brand if they exist. So this being a Kaweco Sport, they make their own cartridges, and that's what I buy. And you'll notice that if you've ever seen another type of cartridge, these are much shorter, but that's because the body of these pens, pocket-sized pens, are shorter. So with a cartridge, you're just going to look for the obvious open end, and into your clean pen, you're going to align it and just firmly press down. You'll hear usually a little click, and that's the end of that cartridge being pierced to allow the ink to flow through. What you want to avoid when replacing a cartridge is any type of moving or twisting after you make that puncture. You want to leave it in place so it doesn't leak. And that's it for replacing a cartridge. You just reassemble your pen, and it will take usually a little time for the ink to flow downward all the way through the feed and be ready to write. So we're going to ink all of these pens first, and then after they've had some time to sit, hopefully they'll all be ready to go straight into writing. And I have a notebook nearby, so if you want to hang around at the end, I'll do some writing samples with these freshly inked pens. This is one of my favorite Kaweco Sports. It was a collab with Galen Leather, so it has their logo in gold on the side. And I'm just going in with a black cartridge on it. Just align it and then press firmly till you hear that click. Nothing to it. One of my favorite go-to fountain pens that I frequently use with cartridges, that even though I do own nicer, more expensive pens, I reach for on practically a daily basis, is a Pilot Kaweco. And that's on average a $10, $12 fountain pen. So it's always my top recommendation if you're not only a beginner or looking to get into fountain pens, but even if you have nicer pens, if you just want something that is inexpensive to take with you on the go, you know, that way in case it does, God forbid, get lost or something, that's always my top recommendation because they are such good writers. Pilot Kaweco. Okay, we'll do the cartridge converters last. We'll do Piston next. I think I've got 2 of those maybe. So where's the rest of the Pelikan? Okay, now this, where's that cap? Okay, there it is. Let's do these 2. This Lamy 2000 is a piston refill, and it has an ink window toward the bottom. So the way a piston works is there is a plunger inside the body of this pen that works in the same way as a cartridge converter. So when the plunger is fully extended, it's at the end. When you turn it to the right or clockwise, you can see it brings the cartridge, or excuse me, the plunger up to the top. Well, when you're doing the refill process, that draws ink up into the pen. And then when you're going to clean, or, you know, as the plunger is turned in the counterclockwise direction, it expels the ink. So I've got this pen open where that plunger inside is already at the bottom. So if I turn it clockwise to the right, let's see if the camera can pick up that plunger passing that ink window. Let's see. Try it one more time. It should be coming through right about there. You see it? And as you turn clockwise and close the piston, your pen is full. So you want to start in a fully open position, all the way counterclockwise or to the left for me, to be ready to take the ink. What do we want to put in our Lamy? Let's go with the blue. I should have matched up my inks earlier. So you're going to refill your piston pens from a bottled ink, and you don't want to shake it vigorously, but you do want to roll it around, kind of like a bottle of nail polish, and just make sure that all of the properties are floating around evenly and there's no pigments sitting at the bottom of the bottle. And unless you want to wear some latex, be prepared for likely inky hands. So you've got this hole down near the feed, and that's where the ink is going to enter the pen. So you just need to make sure that you dip it far enough that that hole is completely covered. And then all you do is turn that piston clockwise, and as that plunger comes to the top, it will draw ink up with it. Now, because of little pockets of air, if you wanted to get the maximum fullest fill possible, you would repeat that procedure twice. So after you draw it up once, you'll expel it completely, and then immediately turn again and draw it back up. I don't always do that because sometimes I'm ready to change ink colors, so I don't mind if it's not a max fill when I fill a pen. But if that's something you're interested in, that's a way to maximize your fill. Now, you're going to have ink on the body of your pen when you do this process, so always cap your ink before moving it, just to avoid a spill. And then you want to have some type of cloth nearby and ready to just clean the outside of your pen, get all of that ink off the body. You could, I suppose, have a damp cloth for this, but I just use a dry flour sack type towel and just very gently rub it in several directions. Okay, there we go. Easy peasy. Okay, and then this Pelikan M200. This is a piston mechanism as well, and it's got a window at the bottom, so that plunger, I'm going to turn counterclockwise. I'm not sure. It's because of that tint. I'm not sure if it's going to show up on camera or not, but there it goes. Plunger's all the way down. And I did that by turning counterclockwise until you can't turn any further. So I enjoy a lighter, fun ink in this pen because the nib is so juicy and bouncy. So we're going to go with Diatramentis Mahatma Gandhi. Just kind of like a sunflower yellow ink. It's stunning. I'm going to be a little quicker with this process since I've already explained it, because it's identical to the Lamy we just inked. Could be done. I'll go ahead and repeat for a max fill on this one. That's literally it. So bottled ink should not be something that intimidates you if you are a beginner. It did me for a long time, but that was only because I had not had exposure to this process and didn't know what to expect. I didn't understand how it works. Just like anything, once you understand the how and why, it becomes quite easy. So you can see that ink window, hopefully, I don't know, but it's full now. You can see the little bubble in there. Okay, and so I believe everything that we have left is a cartridge converter, and there's two ways that you can refill cartridge converters. One is similarly to the piston fill, where you dip the whole assembly into the ink, so we'll do that at least once. And then the other way is to use a syringe, and I'll demonstrate that at least once. So let's get our pins together. There's, yeah, that's our Mont Blanc. Okay. Do I have an extra? This says Pilot. What, am I missing a pin? Oh, I bet this goes, yeah, okay, this goes with that. Okay, so we've got 4 cartridge converters here. Unless I use the same ink in 2, which I'd rather not, I'll just demonstrate the syringe once so I don't have to go clean it off camera and return. So we'll fill 3 of these the traditional way, and then 1 with the syringe. So let's start with the Lamy Safari. We want the plunger all the way down, so when we turn it, actually we're not going to be, yeah, let's go ahead. You can do the cartridge and then assemble, but when you're filling the traditional way, dipping into the bottle, we're going to go ahead and pop the converter into the feed like so. So you want to turn counterclockwise so that plunger is all the way down, and let's use Noodler's Lexington Gray for this pen. It has kind of a dull grayish black body. And just like the piston, we're going to put the pen all the way down into the ink, so it's the end, where the hole is covered, and we're going to turn clockwise. Now you can see that first time there's the ink, but there's like an air bubble getting started out, and it leaves a gap and doesn't give you a full fill in your cartridge. So this time we're going to start over. I just wanted you to see the difference. So I'm expelling the ink now. We're going to repeat that same process, but I'm going to do 2 rounds without pulling the nib out of the ink. And that way I want you to see how you get a fuller feel. When you do it twice, and it expels that air bubble. Okay, so now you can see that there is no air bubble, and it drew the ink all the way up to the top of the cartridge. So that's a full max fill there. Let's cap our ink. Get our ink off the body. And it's just that easy. If there's anything that I haven't explained or demonstrated with this whole re-inking process in this video, please leave your question in the comments below, and I'll try to answer it for you if there's anything you're unsure about. These are the most 3 common ink refilling systems in modern pens. I do have some other refill mechanisms in some vintage pens, but I feel like that would almost just be a separate video. That's not going to be as common. Okay, and then the Mont Blanc has threading where you actually twist the converter downward to secure it. Some you just press in and some you twist, and you'll be able to tell with your pen which is which. So we're going to make sure that plunger's all the way down, and I kind of want to try a shading ink in this one. So let's go with a Robert Oster chartreuse. This is kind of a yellowish green ink, and it has some really nice shading. It's also, all of the Robert Oster inks are fantastic in these pens, the M200. Okay. So down we go, turning clockwise. I can see there's almost ½ an inch of an air bubble, so going back down while the nib is still in the ink, drawing back up a second time. Still a tiny bit of an air bubble, but nowhere near what it was. So we're gonna call that good on this fill. Another beginner tip for re-inking pens or using fountain pens in general is when you're making your ink selections, do a little research if you're able and go beyond just the color of the ink. There are some brands that are just well known to be always reliable and work well in pens, not damage your pens. A good example would be the Pilot inks, the Roshizuku inks. They are a great ink that's going to perform well and not damage your pen. The main thing that you need to be wary of are inks that have sparkle or like heavy shimmer in them. Those you need to use, once you ink those pens, you need to use them daily. You need to use them frequently until the ink is gone, and then you need to immediately clean them. If you let those pens sit for a long period of time, they can damage your pen, or at a bare minimum just make it an absolute beast to properly clean, because those sediments that make the shimmer happen, you know, they're, just imagine something like fine sand going through the feed of your pen and then sitting in there and drying. It just makes a difference. I'm not saying don't use shimmer inks. I'm just saying be very careful, and when you do load your pen with a shimmery ink, don't let it just sit in there for days or weeks and dry up. Go ahead and use it and enjoy it, and then clean your pen, and that's the best way to extend the life of your pen. Okay, so with this Platinum 3776 Century, we're going to go in with the Sailor Shikiori ink, also another really nice ink that writes well and performs well in pens. I would call it safe. I'm pretty sure this is Chushu. Not 100% sure. Okay. First fill left about a 1/4 inch air bubble at the top. I'm going to do a repeat. Okay. Got a full fill. And I will do a writing sample of all of these at the end if you're interested in that. Can't remember if I said that initially or not. Okay, and then last but not least, I'm going to show you how you can use a syringe to fill a cartridge converter. And we will do that here with this Pilot Vanishing Point. And I want to go in with a nice black, so I'm going to go in with Aurora Black. And I should have showed it up close before I started turning the bottle, but I've used this ink so much, it's probably half full, so it's easy to use the syringe fill the lower your ink gets into the bottle. A bubble? Oh no. Okay, so this converter goes into here like so, and then you assemble the pen. What I'm going to do, when you're filling from the bottle, you make sure that plunger is fully extended, so when it's dipped, the air and surface tension draws that ink up into the converter. With the syringe fill, we're not going to be doing any drawing, we're going to do a direct fill. So instead of the plunger being down, we're going to do the opposite, and we're going to make sure that plunger is pulled back all the way, completely, just as it would be at the end of a bottle fill. And we'll take a syringe, and I got this syringe as part of a pen cleaning kit from Goulet Pens. You just make sure the plunger is all the way down, dip it down in your bottle ink, and just pull this end out to draw some up. You don't need very much. This is going to end up being way too much, and I'll put some back into the bottle. But hopefully you can see this with the plunger all the way back and your large blunt needle. You just go directly in and very slowly. I kind of do. Let me see if I can get it all in frame. I almost just, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. Okay. I kind of just tap the end and expel just a drop or two at a time. You don't want to press hard and then overflow your cartridge. Okay. So now I'm holding a fully filled converter. I'm going to assemble it here like so. And with the vanishing point, you have to make sure that little notch is aligned. Okay. So I do really like the syringe feel. It is quick and easy, gives you a full feel. It's not a necessity, but I enjoy it and do it often. And that kit that I was talking about from Goulet, it also included a bottle of pen flush and one of the little, what do you call it, the little bulb syringe, little rubbery bulb syringe thingamagoos. That's a great kit for cleaning pens. You don't need anything fancy to clean your pens well, other than, you know, room temp to slightly cool water. But that pen flush, if you mix it with water and then use that bulb syringe to force that combo through your feed, it just takes a process that is easy but takes forever and just speeds it up. So let's see, which did we, I'm gonna try to, I may mess up, but I'm gonna try to go in the order that we inked them. So let's move into the writing samples. This is the Kaweco Sport. Let's see, there's a little piece of fuzz on the nib, but yeah, so it immediately started writing. And this was with, let's see, this was with purple, I believe. They're purple cartridge. Yeah. Let's see. Summer Purple. Now it's looking more purple. So when it started out looking more black, that must have been like just a remnant of some black ink in the feed, even though I did a what I considered very thorough job with cleaning. Sometimes that will happen. And this is an extra fine stainless steel nib. I would normally do several different types of writing samples, but since I have so many pens here, for the sake of time, I'm just going to write the pen and the ink if I can remember them all. This is a medium. So you can see already much juicier. And this was the proprietary Cartridge. Quite a difference between that extra fine and medium. And this is their pearl black. Now for me, the writing experience is much more enjoyable with the medium because it is juicier and just feels better on the page to me. The extra fine is very firm, not scratchy, but leaning that way, just, you know, to try to describe the feel on the paper. But there's a time and a place, you know, for all nibs. Sometimes if you're trying to write within a very small rule or grid, you need an extra fine pen. Now, I think we did the pistons next. So this was there we go, Lamy 2000. I believe this is a medium as well. This is definitely one, if not the smoothest writing pen that I own. I'm not sure how to pronounce this ink brand. It's the first time I've tried it, but I've been happy with it so far. TACCIA. And this color is Kaki Hanada. And you can already see some shading. I'll also, when I get through writing this out, I'll bring the camera very close so you can see the properties of the ink closer if you're interested in that. And then I love this combo. One of my favorite pens, one of my favorite inks. This is the Pelikan M200. It is an extra fine, if you can believe that, but their nibs write probably 2 grades broader than other brands. They're just kind of known for that. That was Diatramentis. But this is a stainless steel nib, and if I didn't know that, you would never make me believe that. It's so bouncy, and you can get some line variation out of it too. I use it for this cursive type of writing. It's beautiful for that. But I'll just be consistent here and print everything. And then I'm going to run out of room. Okay. Love that ink. Reminds me of sunflowers. Okay, and then we did these next. I think we did this Lamy first. What ink? Oh, this was the Lexington Gray. What, do they call this a sport as well? No, Safari. This says fine. And I forgot to skip a line. This is feathering quite a bit. So I don't know. I mean, to be honest, this Lexington Gray bottle is quite old. So I don't know if maybe it just needs to be replaced, because I don't recall having such an issue in the past with all of this feathering. We shall see. It's always good, if you can, to do a pen test somewhere in the back of your book for these reasons. Just see how they perform on the paper that you're actually going to use. Okay, and then this is the Platinum. There's a little piece of fuzz. I guess I need to wash my, that has no reflection on these pens. That's the rag here. Little fibers. Can't remember if they call it Century 3776 or 3776 Century. And this is a fine. This is a 14 karat nib. And what ink? Oh, that was our Shikiori Sailor ink. I cannot remember the name. I want to say it's Chushu, and I may be misspelling it here. If this is wrong, I'll correct it in the description. And then our Mont Blanc. Oh, can't remember Meisterstroke, what comes after that in the name of this pen. I won't have room to write that whole name anyway, so we're just going to call it MB, and then I believe it's a medium. And the chartreuse. This was the ink I was talking about. That's just such a good shader. All of the Robert Osters that I have, if you're into that. Okay, and then all we have left is our Pilot Vanishing Point. You can see how black that Aurora Black is. I love it. This is a medium, so it's also juicy, and it's a gold nib, and then that's Aurora Black. Okay. Do a little cursive. I'm gonna give you those close-ups. The only one, I'm happy with all of these except the Lexington Gray in the Safari pen. Now, the Safari is one of the more affordable fountain pens in the same price range as the Kaweco Sport or the Pilot Prera. Please don't come for me, but I no longer recommend these. I've gotten rid of several that I had initially purchased as a beginner. For me, they've not turned out to be like a great pen. I think there are other pens that are better performers for the price point, but I did hold on to one or two that I liked the aesthetic and the color of the barrel, this being one of them, obviously. So I can't say whether it's the pen, the nib, or the ink. But, and I mean, this paper is Tomoe River. This is a Taroko Enigma notebook. If it were the paper, they would all be feathering, in my opinion. So it's either the pen or the ink. It could honestly be a 50-50. But otherwise, happy with all of these. And hopefully that refill demonstration was helpful. Like I said, if you have any questions about refilling or cleaning or anything fountain pen related, just leave it in the comments and I'll get back with you. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. That's going to be it for this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.